Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders, and today I'm excited to be talking with Belgium director Alain Platel from Les Ballet C, which is in fact not a ballet company and is anything but a typical dance company. Thank you for joining us, Alain.
Hello. Nice to be with you.
So we're speaking to you today. I'm in London. You're over in Belgium at the moment, I understand.
We are touring at the moment, and we are in Nantes, in France.
Oh, you're in France at the moment. Fantastic.
Yes,
but
we are in France. Yeah.
Soon you'll be coming to London, bringing your new show with us. But before we talk about your tour over to London, tell us, let's go sort of right back to the beginning, where, as I understand, you started your choreographic career in 1984, which began as a bit of an accident, a bet. Tell us about that, how you got started. It's an interesting story.
Yeah, well, I must say it is indeed a bit of an accident. Because my ambition was to become an orthopedagogue, which is the Flemish word for remedial teacher. It's like a pedagogue working with children in difficulties, and that was my real ambition. But at that time, when I was studying, and also after, when I was working as a remedial teacher, I was interested in contemporary theater and dance very much, and with some friends and family members, we started to make our own little performances, and apparently in that time there was a sort of interest for what we were doing, and we were programmed in what I would call new alternative theaters. So that was the beginning of it, and we liked doing that, and at a certain point I think I had to decide whether I wanted to continue doing this as in a more professional way, and quit my job as a remedial teacher, or choose to quit the theater. So I took the risk to make theater, and 30 years later I'm still doing it and enjoying it very much.
And your work is quite hard to classify, and has been defined as radical dance theatre. How would you define your own choreographic style or your language of movement?
Maybe the reason why it's so difficult to classify is that I don't have this typical background as a dancer or a choreographer, so I kind of I was messing around with with people and tried to figure out how to make theater that would please me and us in the first place. So I was very much focused on what people wanted to share with me and how they wanted to appear on stage. And since I was working with people from very different origins and very different backgrounds, there was not one style that we could use for our performances. So we kind of mixed up a lot of things, theater, dance, opera, music, and then also when I was working with dancers, I worked with dancers from different backgrounds, professionals, non-professionals. So we had to find our own style, which was a mixture of this all. And that's why people sometimes call it bastard dance, and I kind of like that. Okay. But if I put it in a broader context, I wouldn't be able to define myself. I think it's nice to read it described by others. I try to be open for all kinds of people and all kinds of styles and all kinds of subjects. So I jump from one theme to another, and sometimes I'm making performances that are much more musical performances or very close to opera. Others are purely dance performances, and then there's a mixture between theater and dance. Sometimes I also invite people who come from a circus background. So maybe the style I'm into is a very eclectic one, and that would be the only word I could find to describe myself.
And
I'm afraid.
what have been some of the challenges that you faced coming into the dance world, and actually flourished in the dance world over the last 30 years, and you are quite an acclaimed creator now, but as you say, without that traditional dance training background, how has that journey been for you in terms of trying to find your place within a world, particularly over the last 30 years, that has been quite defined, but also going through enormous amounts of change?
Well, it's true that when we started, we didn't think we could talk so well, so it would never be like classical theater that we would make, and we were not good movers either. So it would not be like a beautiful dance performance. It was very much based on what we were able to do, and apparently in the beginning we made performances that gradually took the attention also of professional dancers. They were intrigued by what we do and how we worked, and so I must say that when the first professional dancers applied for working with us, I was quite embarrassed because I would never show people how they would dance, or I would never make little choreographies or something like that. And very often they laughed with the comments I gave. But very soon I also got this information from them that they kind of liked this naive approach of how I looked into dance, and how I commented on what they were doing. And it was it was nourishing them very much. So the embarrassment became little by little some sort of how would I say, a power I could use, or a strength, much more than a power that I could use, and it inspired a lot of people I worked with. This was the kind of feedback I got. Same thing happened with musicians, because I have this very naive and maybe childlike approach of how I listen to music. The emotional impact of music is much more important for me than the technical aspect of it. And working with professional musicians, they liked that very much. They very often gave me the comment that they made me think of how they approached music when they decided to become a professional musician, before they became a professional musician. So there is something that in the beginning I was very uneasy about, that became a strength, and that I think I could use as a mean to nourish other people. Mm-hmm. That's what I think was happening.
It sounds as though through your naivety, as you say, it removes some of the barriers or the foundations or edges, and enables freedom for artists to be able to, revisit their art in a different way.
I agree. This is the kind of comment I got throughout my whole career, and it kind of reinforced me. So the naive approach in the beginning is not there anymore, of course, because after 30 years of experience, you have a certain look, but yeah, I still use this vision or this look. I try to cherish it as much as possible, because I know that it helped me a lot in being very open to whatever I see, and giving a lot of freedom to the people I work with. This is something that I've heard on many occasions. People who work with me feel that they are very free to at least try a lot of things, that they feel in in the period of rehearsals a lot of trust, a lot of confidence, so that they can at least be very vulnerable, and they know that I will never use anything that I see in the studio without their approval. It's not because they are showing some things that sometimes are very strong, because in the rehearsal period people are of course very willing to open up and to show very fragile parts of themselves, to open up all this, but I will never abuse it.
Yeah, and I think also as I listen to you, it makes me sort of think and question about what is dance, and the question of accessibility and exclusivity. And I think the work which you produce, and particularly the way that you talk about it, is art. I think art makes me ask myself, question myself. It provides this tension between who is allowed to dance and what is dance. And on the other side of that, everyone can dance. Everyone is allowed to dance. And it provides this tension between the many years that it takes to become a dancer and the inherent movement that we have as humans of this desire to dance. And so I think it's this really interesting tension that your work poses to what dance is.
Yeah, well, I've always seen it as a way to talk about these feelings that are so difficult to talk about with words. It's like when we don't find any words anymore to express our most deepest feelings, then the body takes over. This is the kind of vision I have about dance, and of course there are techniques and there are different styles and forms, and I do appreciate lots of different forms of dance. But for my work, I like it when movements are used to express, as I said, those feelings that we are afraid of to talk about.
Or that can't, as you say, can't be articulated by words. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So tell us about your new show that's coming to Sadler's Wells in London later this month, of which I know that I have difficulty pronouncing. Nicht Schlafen, which is obviously, you say it better than I. You tell me how to pronounce it.
Yeah, there is a link between German and Flemish, so it's true. I can say it. I can pronounce this in the German way, Nicht Schlafen, which means do not sleep. It's a performance that has been made last year, and it was triggered by Gérard Mortier. Gérard Mortier is a theater and opera director who died in 2014, and who throughout my whole career kind of pushed me forward in listening to other kind of music than just Bach, because I'm this Bach passionate. He, before dying, after inviting me to make a work around the music of Mozart in 2003, and then to make one with the music of Verdi and Wagner in 2012, he told me, and now it's time to listen to the music of Mahler, which was a huge challenge for me, because it's the kind of music that I really didn't like at that time. But it was a challenge for me. So one day I decided, like, maybe I should try. And I think by listening to it, informing myself about Mahler as a person and a composer, informing myself also about the time he lived in, which is the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, which I think is a very, very exciting period. And working with dancers on this music, I started to appreciate this music more and more. I think what really helped me a lot to understand, if I can say so, the music of Mahler is reading a book by the historian Philip Blom, The Tumbling Years. He's talking about this period between 1900 and 1914, in which so many things happened in Europe. So many changes occurred in a very fast tempo, that it was also the beginning of a period of great disasters, the First and the Second World War.
Yeah.
And Blom is making the parallel with what happens today. Not that he's saying that we should expect a Third World War, but he talks about these waves in history where sudden, fast changes occur and then are leading to the same kind of results. You know, on a personal level, people who become much more egocentric to protect themselves, but also in a political way. People who are, or a political tendency, who are much more going to the right and extreme right. And this is a kind of parallel that he makes that I thought was very interesting, and I was interested in seeing if things that happened 100 years ago are now happening again, more or less.
Yes.
And the music of Mahler was a very good entrance to try to discover this.
And so what can audiences expect from this performance? What are they going to see or feel?
Yeah, I think it's much more about feeling than about understanding what is going to happen. But if you want, there is a very simple story. You see a group of people entering in a certain space, and the space has been defined by an artist, a Belgian artist who I admire a lot, Berlinde de Breukere, and she made this sculpture of 3 dead horses and a huge blanket that surrounds it. So you see a group of people entering on this space, and a bit like most of the performances that I make, it's about people who are in this space, in this very specific space, and because they stay there too long, a lot of things are happening. In this context, you could imagine that they are living a ritual around this statue, and the music of Mahler is pushing them forward. There are a lot of things that I think people can associate with a certain kind of feeling that people describe nowadays a lot. This feeling of fear, uncertainty, stress, frustration, feeling alone, looking for ways to cope with other people, to form new groups of people where you can feel empathy and compassion. So these elements are visible and you can feel in the performance. But if people are looking for a story, then I'm afraid we will disappoint them.
I'm sure audiences won't be disappointed by this piece at all. And you said before you work with both professional and non-professional dancers from varied backgrounds and disciplines. Tell us about the cast or the group that you worked with for this particular piece.
Well, in this case, it's a group of only professional musicians and dancers, so no non-professionals or amateurs. But it's a mixed group of people I have been working with before and new people. There are 3 new young dancers in the company, and I'm working with some dancers I have been working with for sometimes 10, 12 years. And there are also 2 musicians whom I met in a previous performance called Coup Fatal, which was a music performance made with Congolese musicians who were reinterpreting European Baroque music. and the meeting this group of musicians was for me very important, and they're very good movers. And I was thinking like, wow, it would be great if I could invite them to participate in what we call a contemporary European dance performance, and confront them also with this very typical European sad music, which is the music of Mahler, and to see what they can add to that. The idea was to have only a male group of dancers, because I wanted to also to question men on how they feel nowadays, and how their position as a man is, or how they feel about that. But there is also one woman in the performance who gives a very specific color to the whole performance.
And what is that discussion around the male role that you're looking to have through this piece?
Well, one of the things that Philippe Blom describes in his book, The Tumbling Years, is that in the beginning of the 20th century, men felt very insecure because of the fact that the position of the woman changed quite radically. It was the first wave of feminism, which was linked also to the social and economic position of the woman, that changed very, very radically in the beginning of last century. And he is also talking about the same kind of feeling that he can, the same concept that he can feel nowadays in terms of how man and the position of the man nowadays is perceived. And it was something that I could recognize also. I could recognize around me that men are trying to redefine their position as men in society, and also in personal relationships with women. And it was something I wanted to question. I wanted to ask the dancers. So the original idea was to work only with the male cast. But there was one female dancer I have been working with for a long time now, and she kind of she approached me on different occasions, asking if she could join this group of people. And in the beginning, I was not so eager to do so, but after a while, I was thinking, why not? And maybe she can be some sort of a story that we can tell. How this woman is entering in this group of men. But during the rehearsal period, we saw very fast that that would be a very poor story to tell, because everything she did was not only extremely powerful, but gave a color to everything that was happening in the performance. So her presence gives a very specific color to everything that happens in Nicht Schlafen, and that was enough. So to make a statement about her was not at all necessary.
It's interesting because the exploration of the role of the male in society and in relationships today, and as you say, reflecting the turn of the century experience, is, again, you seem to produce this tension with the current discourse of feminism and the role of women and the experience of women. So it's interesting that, again, through your work and also your subject matter, that you are creating these tensions and these questions and asking us to take a different view or to look at the matter slightly differently. And I think that's, again, quite interesting that your work does that.
Yeah, it's exactly because of this new wave of feminism that I could feel around me that I thought it was interesting to at least question it around me, and it was it was a fantastic experience, to discover how these men were thinking and feeling about this subject, and also the dialogue they had with Bérangère, with the woman in the performance, was something that for me was very uplifting and extremely positive. There was something very beautiful that happened between both of them that I think can be in some way some sort of message also to the audience.
And what message is that?
Well, I think it has to do with the fact that there was a lot of male elements that we discovered that the woman was carrying with her, and a lot of female things that the men were carrying with them that became apparent in the performance, and it's something very not only beautiful to see, but also something that I think in what we discover in all the discussions we maintain about gender problems and gender questions is something that I find very hopeful to see and to feel and to experience.
I like the message of hope.
It sounds a bit. Yeah, it sounds a bit abstract when I talk about it, but it's something that people, when they see the performance, are talking about after the performance. They feel something very warm is happening between all of these people on stage, whether they are men or female, or men or women. It doesn't matter anymore.
That sounds. Even listening to you talk about that sort of gives me a bit of a warm, hopeful feeling. But certainly looking forward to seeing it and looking at the questions that I ask myself afterwards. But finally, I'm interested also in your view about what you see the future of dance is in this particular time in which we live, and how do you see the future unfolding for the dance world?
That's a very, very difficult question.
Yes.
I'm afraid I won't be able to answer. I can tell you that,
it is difficult,
that I'm
isn't
still
it?
interested in I see. I love what I do, and I find it extremely intriguing to continue to work with people and to really use this kind of vision on how dance for me is much more than just something technical or formal, but is a way of communicating things. But at the same time, I can also appreciate to watch performances that are purely formal or are entertaining. So I'm quite open to all sorts of dance forms. I think, as always, things are happening in the cellars and on the attics. I mean, the changes into art forms are happening on these places, and they will appear little by little on the bigger scenes. That's for sure. And for me, it's also very uplifting and very beautiful to see that it's an endless thing. You know, people are inventing and are very creative and are inventing new forms all the time. But at the same time, there is another situation that worries me much more, and this has to do with politics and economics. And I can see that in Europe, culture is under threat a lot. So I can feel that artists, at least where I live, are very concerned about the future of art and culture in general. And they are looking for alternative ways to find means to continue to work. Because they know that, and you can see it everywhere, that the first places where they cut budgets, it's in culture.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the other part of it, which makes me worry much more than when we talk about the artistic future of dance, because there, I believe people, as I said, remain inventive and very creative.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think we certainly feel it here in the UK. The cuts to the arts are drastic with such far-reaching implications, but there is something about human spirit and humanity where I think through that adversity people will continue to be inspired, as you say, to create and to express, and as you say, in the attics and in the basements and, you know, down some dark corridors, the creative process will continue, and hopefully we will be able to see some of that coming onto the main stages in the future when funding returns to some sort of normal levels. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolutely fascinating conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing your piece at Sadler's Wells, and good luck with your tour.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.